Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, back with another reaction video. Today we're going to react to Frito-Lay, Bigger Than You Know. Without further ado, let's get into it. Yeah.
Frito-Lay. Now, this is a fun topic. I remember in detail when I first learned they existed. I must have been in first grade, and these flamin' hot Cheetos were extremely popular at my school. Well, one day, one of my friends told me that they were made by Frito-Lay, and that was one of the most confusing sentences that I've ever heard. I knew all those words, but they were put together in a way that didn't make any sense. Here, it was like if someone had told me that the makers of PlayStation was a company called Sega Nintendo. What do you even make of that? But he showed me the little symbol on the bag, which was hard to dispute. I spent the next few days asking everyone I knew about this. The general feedback was something like, Frito-Lay, yeah, they make a lot of the chips. But I still had so many unanswered questions. Then recently, I saw this idea for a video submitted through my website, and it brought me right back to when I was wondering all of this. On the back of a lot of chip bags, you see Frito-Lay near the bottom. I had a few questions about this company. Who is or what is Lay? Why Frito? I thought it would be a cool topic to cover. And a lot of other people have been suggesting this too, so for anybody who finds all this strange or confusing, I'm going to try to straighten all of this out by making the video that I wish had existed when I was in first grade. I'll tell you about what these names are and how they came to be in a minute. They're actually really good stories, but first, let's go through some of their brands. When you're in the supermarket and you're going down that snack aisle, they own a much higher portion of it than you may think. Now, of course, they own Fritos and Lay's, and those are two really big brands right there, but that's only
Fritos are fucking disgusting.
They own 3 large brands that rhyme with Fritos. They own Frito, Cheeto, Tostito, and Dorito, in addition to Sun Chips, Funyuns, Cracker Jack, those grandma's cookies that I never liked, Matador, that's those meat sticks, Munchies, Rolled Gold pretzels, Ruffles, Smart Food popcorn. There's many more that I'm not listing, but those are the main ones. They own the biggest brand in just about every chip category.
Damn!
So if it's big, you're safe in assuming it's Frito-Lay, with a few exceptions. Here's some of the leading brands that they're not associated with. You have Pringles, Cape Cod, Utz, Bugles, Snyder's of Hanover, Mission. None of those are associated with Frito-Lay. And if you're ever in question on whether or not they produce something,
I would think Pringles would be Frito-Lay, but I guess not.
That symbol. Now, since 1965, Frito-Lay has been part of Pepsi, and actually the second biggest part of Pepsi in the way that they break down the reportable segments. One of their 6 segments is Frito-Lay North America, which includes their branded food and snack business in the United States and Canada. Essentially everything I've been talking about in North America. And in 2017, that segment alone generated $15.8 billion in sales, which is 25% of their total sales.
Dang.
And 42% of their operating profits.
Dang.
So obviously one day Pepsi themselves should be part of this series, considering everything we're talking about here is only a quarter of their sales. So stay tuned for that one down the line. But for now, let's forget about Pepsi and focus on Frito-Lay. The name Frito-Lay is a result of 2 amazingly similar companies coming together. First, let's look at the Frito end. That concerns a man named Elmer Doolin, who in 1932 had an ice cream business that wasn't doing too well. Remember, this was during the Great Depression. So he comes across this Mexican gentleman selling fried corn chips for 5 cents a bag.
Bro, Fritos are fucking disgusting, bro. I hate Fritos
because in Spanish, Frito means fried. So that's where the Frito part comes from. Now, Doolin over here with his ice cream business struggling was thinking about how he might want to make a switch into something like this. Just selling these little bags of corn chips for 5 cents. I can only theorize as to why he was so attracted to it, but I guess that he saw value.
Fritos are fucking disgusting. No matter what type of flavor you put on it, they fucking disgusting.
You get full, and
put chili flavor, barbecue flavor, cheddar flavor, they disgusting.
But still, 5 cents. Plus, they must have been some pretty tasty Fritos. So Doolin started talking to the owner of this little Frito business, and I'm sure he was happy to learn that he was actually looking to sell it so he can move down to Mexico. Now, here's something really important for anyone thinking about buying a business from someone, or really buying anything from someone. Find out why they're selling it, and if they say they're looking to move away and can't keep it anymore, that's what you want to hear. I called it a little Frito business because this was just about as small as you can get, and there was nothing special about it. There were others in the area selling very similar chips. The price he paid was $100, which essentially just got him the recipe, a few retail customers, and an old piece of equipment to make them. He moved it all into his mom's kitchen and started making them there and selling them out of his car. Daily sales were typically less than $10 per day, 8 of which went toward covering costs, meaning he was pocketing $2 a day. Can we just stop to think about that? The Frito part of the Frito-Lay that we know today started out with sales of $10 per day. What is that, like 2 family-sized bags today? Now, let's take a look at how the Lay side of the business started. And unlike Frito, Lay is someone's name. It comes from a man named Herman Lay, who also had a background in the ice cream business and also bought into a small chip company for the amount of $100. We have to stop again to emphasize this. Both sides of Frito-Lay were brought into their current form through a $100 purchase. And as if these two stories weren't similar enough, they both obtained the money through a loan. Both of the purchases were made in the same year, and they both started by selling them from their car. The key differences are, well, one is corn chips and one is potato chips. One was in San Antonio and the other was in Atlanta. And then Herman Lay only bought in on part of the company initially. He didn't take over the whole thing until a few years later. Whereas Elmer Doolin went all in at once, so Lay was involved with a considerably larger company to start. And the similarities continued from there, just making dollars a day early on, but then slowly growing their business in the ways that you would expect, hiring salesmen to increase their sales and expand their reach, expanding their manufacturing capabilities to fill those sales, and both of them eventually advertising through their own mascots. Lay's had Oscar the Happy Potato and Fritos had the Frito Kid. In 1945, the two companies started working together. It makes sense. Two very similar businesses that offer products that aren't identical. Plus, they were serving different areas of the country, one from Georgia and one from Texas. They came to a pretty smart deal that said the Lay's company would exclusively be allowed to manufacture and sell Fritos in their part of the country, and the Frito company would have the same rights when it came to Lay's in their part of the country. The two of them were now making both chips. After 16 years of this arrangement, with both of their revenues well into the millions at this point, the two companies decided to merge into one. The newly formed company was called Frito-Lay, and that's how it came to be. But some bad news for Doolin, the head of the Frito company. He actually died a couple years before the merger and never had the opportunity to see the existence of Frito-Lay.
Damn.
A few years later, that company merged with Pepsi. I'll save the details of that for a later date. But that explains the chip brands, Frito and Lay's. But what about the rest of the snack aisle? How did all of this happen? Well, let me go through some of them. Cheetos were an original creation from the Frito company and are actually said to have been created by Elmer Doolin himself in 1948.
Oh,
the
damn.
rights to make Ruffles were bought by the Frito company in 1958. So at the time of the big merger in 1961, 3 of the 4 major brands of chips the combined company possessed were brought to the table by Frito. But Lay's did bring the smaller brand of Rolled Gold, who they had bought just before the merger. Then in 1966, the combined company of Frito-Lay developed their first major brand together, Doritos, who quickly surpassed most of the other brands in terms of sales. 3 years later, they introduced Funyuns, who, in my opinion, is a terrific name, but not the best product. Then in 1977, they introduced Tostitos, which were created based on customer feedback from Doritos. In 1980, they acquired Grandma's Cookie brand, who, again, I think is a terrific name, but not the best product. In 1989, they acquired Smart Food Popcorn, which was just a regional brand at the time, but they made it national. In 1991, they introduced Sun Chips. In 1997, they acquired Cracker Jack, Alright, I didn't cover every brand they own today, but I think you get the point. You
Yeah.
can see that they're bigger than
They
you.
own the market.
How
They own the
came to
chip
possess
market. I
a lot of the
understand.
brands that help make them bigger than you know. I like to think I answered these questions, and any questions that I had back when I was in first grade. So if I ever get my hands on a time machine, first order of business is to go back to the late 90s and show this video to myself. And then maybe try to prevent World War II or something, but this first.
Really?
Let me know in the comments. Did you know about the extent of Frito-Lay? Or maybe you didn't even realize they existed. Unless you're closely looking at the packaging or take
No, I
notice
mean,
of all
I
those
knew
trucks
they
on the street
existed. I mean, I knew that they existed. It's just curious to find out how all this shit happened. You know, I was born in the 90s. A lot of us probably watching these videos were born in the 90s. We went around the time these mergers happened and these companies came up and built these dominant franchises that are still relevant in our lives today.
at the gas stations. I don't know how else you'd know. Maybe you heard it somewhere randomly, like I did, but if that's the case, there must have been some confusion happening. So I hope I set things straight. I also want to mention, this is a deep topic. In this video, I mostly focused on their size and how the two separate companies formed and came together, but there's so much more. I initially wanted this to be more centered around how they got so big and dealt with competitors with some major business choices throughout the years, touch on things like flavors and product lines, but everyone was requesting that I make it in this format, which makes me think many people don't realize how big they are, which is understandable, so maybe this was a smarter place to start. Also, I just like this topic, and I think it'd be fun to make something about Frito-Lay's marketing, focusing more on their ad campaigns and mascots. I touched on some of their early characters, but then there's things like Chester Cheetah, Frito Bandito was a whole thing. So let me know what you think of that idea. There's definitely more to talk about when it comes to Frito-Lay. So any thoughts concerning the company, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Alrighty, that's just gonna about do it for this one, man. I will see y'all in the next video. Till then, peace out.